A year after October the 7th, the effects of war can be seen everywhere in Israel. On the beach in Tel Aviv, civilians walk around with assault rifles slung over their shoulders. They are army reservists. Since the beginning of the conflict with Hamas, 360,000 of them have been called up, marking the largest mobilization in 50 years. In a small flat in the city centre, a man is preparing to return to the front. At 37, Yehuda is not a soldier by profession, but a community manager. Yet he's already spent 120 days in the Gaza Strip.
Am I scared? Not scared. I'm petrified. The last thing I want to do is fight. I'm not a Viking. I don't wake up in the morning and, hey, let's go to war.
Tonight, he will rejoin his unit, in charge of supplying troops deployed to combat.
These are the extra batteries. This is when you drive in the Hummer.
He also keeps some symbolic items in his bag, such as this newspaper that pays tribute to Israeli soldiers who've been killed.
One horrible day, I think, 21 kids, guys. These are good people.
Since the beginning of the conflict, Yehuda has been filming his ventures into the rubble of Gaza. This video was taken at the end of October 2023, just 2 days after the start of the ground offensive.
No matter what, and even though it's sad, we sing and we keep a smile on our face, and it's a bit crazy.
A year later, and with the conflict reportedly having claimed more than 40,000 lives in Gaza, Yehuda remains convinced of the need for offensive action.
Sometimes I hear the number is 30, 40, 20, 10. I feel bad when I hear the numbers. I really do. I don't celebrate when I hear other people suffer. War wouldn't even start, or it would end without this crazy situation with the hostages.
Even if a soldier is willing to defend his army and his country at all costs, he can still call for the government's resignation. Since October the 7th, when he isn't on the front lines, Yehuda takes part in protests against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. For whom he had long been an unconditional supporter.
I gave out flyers of Netanyahu in Ramot in Jerusalem when I was 11 years old. I think that the right thing for him to do is to stay. I made a mistake. Under my responsibility, October 7th happened. I'm stepping back. Like
him, more and more soldiers are standing up against the government. He recently joined Brothers and Sisters in Arms. An organization of soldiers who oppose Benjamin Netanyahu. Their leader, Ron Scherf, is a retired lieutenant colonel from an elite unit.
3 months ago, and this government is only acting for its survival. And we understand that in order to rebuild Israel after such a dramatic catastrophe, this government has to go away.
Like Yehuda and Ron, nearly 100,000 people gather every Saturday to express their anger and demand the resignation of Benjamin Netanyahu. Among them are the relatives of hostages who have been held in Gaza for a year. A diverse representation of Israeli society is present. These left-wing activists have been marching against the government for years. Sarah, 28 years old, is here tonight to make herself heard. She's going to try to block the motorway with the other protesters. They're pushed back by the police.
I mean, you can see it in the protests. People are like a little weak because we're traumatized and we're afraid, like, we're very unstable right now. But it's for the Palestinians too. Like, this government doesn't care about them at all, just like Hamas doesn't care about them. It's like we both have a problem of really bad leaders.
These scenes of anger have become a regular occurrence in Israel, and the country is becoming increasingly fractured. On October the 7th, 2023, Israel plunged into horror. 1,200 people were killed and over 250 were captured by Hamas. In retaliation, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu launched an offensive attack in the Gaza Strip.
But though Israel didn't start this war, Israel will finish it.
A year later, the war is said to have claimed 40,000 lives in the Palestinian enclave, most of them civilians. Since mid-September, Israel has also opened a second front in the north and is carrying out strikes in Lebanon against Hezbollah. In Israel, the population is traumatized, anxiously awaiting news on the fate of the hostages.
This is the best time to release the hostages. Now.
The terrorist attack has shaken one of the foundations of the country, guaranteeing the safety of the Jewish people. More than half of Israelis believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is not handling this war properly, but the Prime Minister manages to stay in power thanks to the alliance he has forged with the religious far right. The goal of some of his ministers: to annex the Palestinian territories. Since October the 7th, settlement activity in the West Bank has intensified. The most radical settlers are taking over Palestinian fields. In a rare decision, Amishav has agreed to show us his outpost, which is an illegal settlement. In this region, violence is rapidly on the rise. Extremist settlers are stepping up their attacks to drive out the Palestinians. But throughout the country, many are criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu's policies and proposing an alternative.
This government is full with irresponsible figures. They are totally lunatic.
A trip to Israel, a country united by mourning but fractured by war. Once popular with Israelis, the seaside resorts on the shores of the Dead Sea have been deserted by tourists. These luxurious resorts no longer host wealthy guests. Over the past year, they've been transformed into refugee camps. In this hotel, survivors of the Beeri kibbutz, where 101 people were murdered on October the 7th, are waiting to return home. Every Friday night, they gather to celebrate Shabbat, the weekly day of rest.
Bon, ça, c'est une façon de se retrouver. Et même les enfants, donc, on essaye de faire des choses pour rester ensemble.
Simone is Franco-Israeli. She moved to Beeri with her husband Moshe 22 years ago. Every refugee here has a loved one who was a victim of the attack.
Oh là là! שלוש? לילה טוב. נמשיך לראות אותה. תודה. ביי, תודה. Elle a perdu sa mère. Ils l'ont tué sa mère.
For the past year, Simone and her husband Moshe have been living in this 20 square meter room.
Voilà. Ben Moshe nous a laissé la porte.
transformed into a little makeshift flat provided by the Israeli government.
Ça, c'est un peu tout. C'est une cuisine, c'est une salle de bain, c'est un endroit où on met les médicaments. Il faut faire avec ce qu'on a, monsieur.
The couple anxiously awaits the fate of the hostages and their eventual release.
Il a été libéré par les soldats israéliens il y a une semaine.
Their life has been put on hold, something that Simone and Moshe hope will be temporary. Despite the trauma, the couple is starting to return home to work. 5 times a week, along with a dozen other displaced people, the couple make the 2-hour journey to Beeri, just 4 kilometers from the Gaza Strip. The army still carries out checks on those entering the village. One year on, the scars of October the 7th are still visible all over the streets. Houses are riddled with bullet holes, marked by impacts from rockets or completely burnt to ashes. Out of the 350 houses in Beeri, 120 have been destroyed. This house belonged to a friend of Simone's who was murdered by Hamas.
Il avait construit une autre maison en haut. Il était tellement fier de ce qu'il avait construit là-haut. Là, sa voisine, elle était là, mais ils l'ont tuée aussi. Mais on se connaissait tous.
On each house, photos of the murdered owners.
Est-ce que tu peux, toi, me donner une explication de tuer une famille entière quand on n'a rien contre cette famille? C'est pas qu'elle nous a fait quelque chose de mal ou quoi, rien. C'est tuer pour tuer.
Most buildings have even become memorial sites. In the former dental clinic, everything has stayed the same since the attack. The walls bear witness to the heavy fighting that took place here. 5 people were killed by Hamas. Since then, their loved ones have come to pay their respects. This man's cousin was the nurse at the clinic.
Ah, voilà. Là, c'est sa photo à elle. זה לא קשה לך?
קשה, אבל חייב.
Despite the horror, Beeri is slowly coming back to life. Beeri is what is known as a kibbutz, a village where everyone lives together as part of a community. In the dining room,
Bonjour, Annette.
Bonjour.
members of the kibbutz are having their meals together once again.
Ça va?
Oui, et toi?
And they've started working at the printing shop again, a shop which supports the entire village.
On est là et on restera là. Ils ne pourront jamais nous chasser. Jamais. Et Moshe?
These predominantly left-wing kibbutzim have always promoted peace with the Palestinians, yet peace has never seemed so far away.
השביעי לאוקטובר גרם לזה שהיום אני לא מאמין בזה, זה בולשיט. זה כמו שתשים שמן במים, הם לא יכולים להתמזג, נכון?
A year after October the 7th, the entire country is consumed by war. Around the Gaza Strip, some people even watch from a nearby hilltop, and everyone remembers the hostages still being held in the enclave. 101 people are still in the hands of Hamas. In Lavon, in northern Israel, a mother is desperately waiting for the return of her son, Alon.
And before he left, he played, so he left the piano open. I leave it open until he comes back, so he will know that we're waiting for him to play again.
On October the 7th, Alon, the son of Edith and Corby, was celebrating at the Tribe of Nova Festival, a kilometre from Gaza, with 3,500 young people. and the attack began, Alon took refuge with some friends in a rocket shelter.
They're in the bomb shelter, and they're, taking pictures of themselves, and they're talking to each other. You see, there's Alon.
When they found out that the son had been caught in the center of the attack, they managed to reach him.
מה קורה? מה איתכם? 7:57. 8:08, אנחנו במיגונית, הכל טוב. אני מיד שולח לו הודעה, שלח תמונה. זאתי בעצם התקשורת האחרונה שלנו עם אלון באותה שבת.
A few minutes later, Hamas militiamen attacked the shelter.
I do that. So say that he's throwing grenades, you see that?
The terrorists killed 5 festival goers and kidnapped 4, one of which was Alon.
Okay, now this is Alon being taken. And look how they're taking him with his. See, they're putting him on the truck, and they're hitting him so he can go inside and go inside. He was not an enemy. He was an innocent civilian that went to a party and was taken from Israeli land. He was not in the army, not fighting anybody, not doing anything bad, and he was taken for just being a Jew.
A year later, Edith and Corby still have no news of their child. According to Israeli intelligence sources, only half of the 101 hostages are still alive.
I have no control over what's going on with Alon. I cannot control, if he's eating, if they're hurting him. Even today, if he's seeing sunlight, for the past 9.5 months, I have no control over this.
Edith and Corby are convinced that a ceasefire in Gaza is the only way to secure their son's release.
Alon is not just my child. He's not just my son. He's everyone's son. Because the meaning of him coming back is the meaning that we as a nation, we as a country, all of us, are there for each other. This is the best time to release the hostages. The war is, everything they're doing in Gaza is, it's finished. There's no more. Should stop it.
The Hamas attack sent shockwaves through Israel. Since then, many Israelis no longer feel safe. Convinced that another attack could happen, they've turned to firearms. This fear is fueled by members of the government. In particular, the inflammatory Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir. Hailing from the religious far right, Itamar Ben-Gvir has made extreme rhetoric his trademark. During a riot in Jerusalem in October 2022, with a pistol in hand, he called for Palestinians throwing stones to be shot. Benjamin Netanyahu appointed him minister 2 months later. Since then, he's made it his priority to expand gun ownership for Israelis. Just weeks after the Hamas terrorist attack, Itamar Ben-Gvir was filmed handing out assault rifles to Israelis. In November 2023, he significantly relaxed rules for obtaining a firearm, and in just 4 months, the minister proudly announced that 100,000 licenses had been issued.
אנחנו גם רואים היום ברחובות ישראל שכשלאזרחים יש נשק, הם מרגישים בטוחים יותר, יכולים למנוע ולנטרל מחבלים חמושים.
In Herzliya, north of Tel Aviv, Israelis come to this shooting range to learn how to use their weapons.
לכוון לראש, לכוון ללב, הלב שלו יותר נמוך. כשמכוון, האקדח לא יורד למטה.
כן, כן.
בסדר? כל זה נשאר מקובע, וכל זה עם אותו יחס.
Perry and her friend Odelia have benefited from the relaxation of these rules. They recently obtained the right to carry a weapon.
נותן תחושה יותר טובה, תחושה של ביטחון.
But this is only Perry's third time practicing shooting.
אומר לה אפילו...
She wanted to arm herself because 3 of her relatives were murdered on October the 7th.
מאז ה-7 לעשירי, וזה קעקוע שבעצם כתוב עליו אוקטובר 23, וזה בעצם חרבות ברזל מבחינתי, ואלו הפרחים שנקטפו, זאת אומרת, כל האנשים שנהרגו בסביבה שלי והחברים שאני מכירה.
Perry lives just 2 kilometers from the Gaza Strip, in Karmiya, an area the government considers dangerous. She lives here with her husband Shai and her daughter Amit, who has a rather special collection in her garden shed.
So, since I live in the kibbutz, I collected some stuff from...
Rocket debris that fell nearby.
חתיכה שנפלה באחד מהטיולים פה בקיבוץ שמצאתי, כתבתי על זה peace. היום אני פחות מאמינה בזה, אבל זה משהו שיכול לקרות. You need to close this.
Amit no longer believes in peace because on October the 7th, around 100 terrorists tried to storm her kibbutz. That day, her family escaped the worst. The terrorists were stopped at the entrance. Since then, Perry and Shai sleep with their weapons at the ready.
The gun is out there.
No, this is already gun.
Over there.
כי מאז שיש לי את האקדח ומאז ה7 לעשירי אני מרגישה יותר בטוחה שהאקדח נמצא ליד הראש, כי אם יהיה משהו באמצע הלילה, אני פשוט יקום וישים אותו עליי, כי כבר היו מחבלים אצל אנשים בבתים. אין לי מושג מתי הם יבואו אליי ואם בכלל. אז אני מעדיפה שזה יהיה ליד הראש שלי.
The village was evacuated. Today, only a handful of families have found the strength to return.
Here on this area, to this side for the kid garden, and I constantly hear kids laughing, kids traveling, and I just don't hear that anymore. There's just silence.
Amit and her family are angry with their Prime Minister for his failure to protect them on October the 7th. In a survey from last July, 72% of Israelis wanted to see him resign. Benjamin Netanyahu has been in power for 16 years, but is facing increasing opposition. He is being prosecuted for breach of trust, fraud and corruption in 3 cases. However, the 74-year-old politician has managed to stay in power thanks to the alliance he has forged with the far right, particularly the religious Zionists, a fundamentalist ideological movement. 7 of his 29 ministers are from this movement, including Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Minister of National Security, as well as Bezalel Smotrich, the Finance Minister. For them, the country's borders should align with the sacred texts, incorporating all Palestinian territories. In January 2024, Bezalel Smotrich took part in a rally for the recolonization of Gaza. Since October the 7th, the finance minister has been stepping up his settlement policy in the other major Palestinian territory, the West Bank. This region has been under military occupation by the Jewish state since 1967, following its victory over Jordan in the Six-Day War.
On June the 6th, at noon.
An occupation that was supposed to be temporary. In 1993, the Oslo Accords, signed by Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Palestinian Authority leader Yasser Arafat, outlined a gradual Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank and the eventual creation of a Palestinian state.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
In the meantime, they've divided the West Bank into several areas. Area A, around the major Arab cities is under the exclusive control of the Palestinian Authority. Area B is under Palestinian administrative control but secured by Israel. Area C, which represents 60% of the territory, is occupied by the Jewish state. Yet 30 years on, Israel has not withdrawn. Today, 500,000 settlers live in the West Bank. And the most extremist among them are continuing to take over Palestinian territories, starting with agricultural areas. At the age of 32, Amishav considers himself a pioneer. At the end of July, he came to harvest the wheat he sowed a year ago with his wife and 5 children.
יוסף חיים, פה תראה, בוא. כאן תראה, יש פה חיטה יפה. דרור, בוא תראה פה גם ליד יוסף חיים, אתה יכול פה.
But there's no combine harvester or tractor here. Everything is done using traditional methods, just using sickles.
תסתכל, הנה, בוא תראה פה. תראה פה. בוא תראה. אתה רואה פה? תפוס את זה ככה עם היד.
Except that this field does not belong to Amishav. He believes his claim to the land comes not from the law, but from sacred texts.
זה חבל ארץ של עם ישראל, וזה הבסיס לכל השאלה כל שאלת הקרקעות, אז הבעלויות על הקרקעות מתחילה מהנחת יסוד שהקרקעות פה של עם ישראל. עכשיו, מי שרוצה לטעון אחרת, חובת ההוכחה מוטלת עליו.
Amishav inherited this ideology from his father and grandfather, settlers before him.
וזה חלק מהמשפחה, זה חלק מהעם שלנו. אנחנו עם חקלאי, עם יוצר, ואנחנו אחרי 2000 שנה שהיינו בגלות, והתעסקנו בעיקר במסחר חיצוני. עכשיו אנחנו לאט לאט חוזרים לעבודת הקרקע, לעבודת האדמה. כל חיטה כזאת, מבחינתנו זה בשורה של עם שחוזר אחרי 2000 שנה לארץ. זה כבר הסוף של החיטה השנה. מה שישאר, אני מקווה שהכבשים יאכלו.
Amishav lives in the heart of the West Bank, right in the middle of Palestinian territory. In this area, settlers have gradually taken control of the land and the roads. Some of these are now off-limits to Palestinians. Army checkpoints control the entrances, but seem to turn a blind eye to his illegal settlement.
הארץ הזאת כולה שלנו, יש להם פעולה חיובית שהם מנסים לעשות. הם רוצים לחיות פה, לייצר פה מציאות של גן עדן בארץ ישראל. ועיקר מה שהערבים רוצים לעשות פה, תקרא את האמנה של פתח או של חמאס או של כל הדברים האלה, בעיקר מה שמעניין אותם זה השלילה של היהודים. שעם ישראל לא יהיה פה בארץ ישראל. והטוב ינצח, החיוב גובר על השלילה.
Amishav has set up his house illegally at the end of this stony track that leads to the top of the hill.
פה לא פשוטים, אבל אנחנו שמחים. העיקר שמגיעים ללמעלה.
He's been living in this prefabricated building overlooking the valley for about 10 years. This is known as an outpost, an illegal settlement. According to the American organization, the Israel Policy Forum, 20,000 settlers live in illegal outposts like Amishav's across the West Bank.
באים לפה, מקים התיישבות, בונים, נוטים, עובדים. זהו, שמחים בזה. זה החירות שלנו, זה החופש שלנו.
Amishav puts his religion above all else. So in his outpost, he has set up his synagogue right across from the Palestinian villages as a form of provocation.
יש לנו את ארון קודש. פה זה הבשורה של הצדק בעולם, של החופש האמיתי בעולם. זה הבעלות שלנו על ארץ ישראל. פה כתוב שעם ישראל קיבל את ארץ ישראל. פה זה המוסר שלנו, זה האמת שלנו, ולפי זה אנחנו הולכים, בשביל זה באנו לפה.
His and his family's entire way of life is dictated by religion.
בואי, אבא.
דרוש, לך לצאת בקבוק חדש מהמקפימונית,
In their makeshift home, there are religious books and flags that, according to him, represent the true borders of Israel.
זה הסמל של ארץ ישראל השלמה, זה המפה.
Like many extremist settlers, Amishaf advocates for an Israel that spans much of the Middle East.
זה דרום טורקיה, היום. פה זה המפרץ הפרסי, עוברים פה את סוריה, עיראק, ירדן כמובן פה, לבנון, סיני.
ולכן עם ישראל חייב להכריע, זה לא שאלה שאם אנחנו נכבוש את לבנון או את עזה ואם נקים שם התיישבות, זה בכל ארץ ישראל השלמה זה יקרה. עם ישראל ככלל, כאומה, חוזר לארץ שלו, ואם זה לא מסתדר, אומות אחרות רוצות לטעון בעלות על הארץ הזאת, אז אנחנו נלחם בהם ונכריע אותם. אם פרטים רוצים לחיות פה בשלום, אז יחיו בשלום, מי שרוצה מלחמה יקבל מלחמה.
By taking over the hills, the settlers are gradually pushing the Palestinians into enclaves, with some resorting to violence to drive them out. Since October the 7th, settler attacks have risen sharply. The UN has recorded an average of 7 attacks per day, 3 times as many as before the Hamas attack. The shepherd village of Al-Mughayir lies right in the middle of the West Bank, in an area under Palestinian Authority control. But Israeli settlements have sprung up all around it. And the extremist settlers are getting dangerously close, with their outposts multiplying. The residents here live in constant fear, because last April they were attacked. That day, hundreds of settlers came down from their hill after the death of a 14-year-old shepherd boy killed a few days earlier by Palestinians from another village. They burnt around 100 cars, 60 houses, and killed sheep. The Israeli army stayed away. Two weeks later, the village roadsides are still littered with burnt vehicles, and all the residents are traumatized. This shepherd lost 50 sheep in the attack.
جوا تعال كرب فهم هانا في غنم ضلينا 4 5 بعد اللي قتلوهن هم طلب منا خوف من اليهود إن نسجل عليهم تكفون فقد تصير ملان بحر كالدبان هان تم حرك الحيوانات في هذا المصدر هل الأغنام في جل دول العالم هل يجوز حرك الأغنام والدواب كلي ولك بساتر بلا مفتاح الله لا يفتح لك بعدها.
The settlers completely burnt down one of his houses.
تعالوا جابر تعالوا جابر تعالوا جابر كرجال تعال شو ذنب اطفالي هذول يحركوا ليش يحركهم يا نتنياهو هذول الاطفال ليش شو سووا زموا معهم رشاشات زموا شيء استحلوا مستعمرات خطفوا طيارة خطفوا باص.
Since the attack, the shepherd has had to barricade himself in.
خلاص هيسوي رسالتي للحكومة الفرنسية كلهم بسكر حالي شوف جبهة تحمي حالي وأطفالي من القطعان المستوطنين.
But during their raid, the settlers not only attacked the houses, they also killed a young man, Jihad. In front of his home, large posters have been hung to pay tribute to him. And in his flat,
هذه غرفة جهاد مثل ما هي من ما حدا طب فيها. خلي الواحد يظل ذكرياته الساعة تتذكره.
Jihad was 25 years old and was supposed to get married in 3 months' time.
حوالي 13 سنة أنا بقى عمري شهاد. هذه برا في الخلا في الجبال. عندنا مثل هالأطفال إنه يعيشوا بأمان وسلام من دون مشاكل. يتجوز يبني بيته ويعيش مثل هاللي بيعيشوا في أمان من دون مشاكل ولا شيء.
On the day of the attack, Jihad and his friends attempted to stave off the attackers. As they threw stones at the settlers, he was shot in the head.
فش ما بنقدر نسوي، هذا عدو ما بتقدر تسوي له، مش مفرق بين شيء المستوطنها. شو بدنا نعمل لها؟ احنا الواحد اعزل يعني ما بيطلع في هذا شيء يسويه للمستوطن، هذاك معاه بارود وسلاح بطخك اي حركه بطخك.
Nevertheless, in Israel, people are increasingly criticizing the violence of these extremist settlers. One of their most ardent opponents has a rather unexpected profile. He's a rabbi. Rick Asherman is 65 years old. Born in the United States, he's been fighting against settler violence in the West Bank for 20 years. A fight which almost cost him his life when, in 2015, a hooded settler attacked him with a knife. More recently, he was beaten with sticks while accompanying Palestinians during their olive harvest.
I'm particularly known and hated by the settlers.
This morning, Arik was called to the village of Hamas, 20 kilometers from Jerusalem. An area under the control of the Palestinian Authority, a sign advises Israelis against going there. So, before entering, Arik takes a small precaution.
I need to take my kippah off when I'm going through a village. For them, symbolizes fanatic, violent settlers.
The village is surrounded by Israeli settlements, and its 2,000 residents watch as their territory is gradually eroded. At 36, Mustafa has always lived here. He keeps about 100 sheep and goats, but has to keep them locked in this enclosure. He's afraid for his animals because just a few hundred meters up this hill, settlers have set up an outpost. Mustafa recently had 20 sheep stolen.
هون كانوا الغنم، من هون دخلوا المستوطنين أخذوهم. دخلوا المستوطنين اجوا على الشارع، إيش حملوه في السيارات وإيش أخذوه مع الغنم.
أهلاً، كيف حالكم؟
For Arik, the Israeli rabbi, the government is fueling the settlers' sense of impunity.
The determination of this current government with Bezalel Smotrich and Ben Gvir from doing everything they can to move ahead at, now at lightning speed, the dispossession and expulsion of Palestinians and the expansion of settler spheres of control. The expansion of the spheres of control has just been, out of control now.
The intimidation is constant. Barely 10 minutes after we started our interview,
Villages, I think, but never had a government. Fishy?
a car with settlers inside approaches the houses.
This is a car we know, and if he just comes in and drives through, that's the least of the problems. If he tries to stop, that will be another story.
Arik takes photos of them to collect evidence of their scare tactics.
Does he stop? Is he going through?
This time, the settlers did not stop. However, on the 30th of March, one of their raids turned into a bloodbath. That day, around 30 extremists entered the village. Several were armed with assault rifles and some were hooded. Some even wear army uniforms, but it's impossible to know if they're really soldiers. As the Palestinians try to intervene, they hold them at gunpoint, firing bursts of gunfire into the air. During this raid, settlers injure 2 Palestinians. 5 months later, Samhan Abu Ali is struggling to recover from his injuries.
عملت هنا كسروا لي ايدي هون. عملت عملية بلاتين.
في بلاتين في ايدك؟
بلاتين هذا الايد نفس الشيء خلعت. ورجعوها بعدين طلع مقطوع فيها 4 أوتار. 10 غرز. شركوا ضربوني ماسورة حديد.
No settler was arrested or even questioned by the Israeli police or army following this attack, and the illegal camp continues to terrorize the village. Instead of staunchly condemning the attacks, at the instigation of its radical ministers, the Israeli government has legalized some of the outposts established by these settlers. In 2024, according to the NGO Peace Now, 63 of these outposts have been recognized by the government. In June 2024, Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, seized more than 1,200 hectares of Palestinian land, mainly in the Jordan Valley. This was the largest annexation in 30 years, a settlement policy which sometimes feels irreversible. Far from the outposts, most of the 500,000 Israelis living in the West Bank now reside in settlements that resemble cities. Like Ariel, one of the largest settlements located in the heart of the occupied Palestinian territories. It takes only 45 minutes to get there from Tel Aviv, thanks to a highway built specially by the government. Here there are no checkpoints or borders. Everything is designed to give the feeling of not leaving Israel. When Ariel was founded in 1978, it only had around 40 settlers. But it has since continued to expand, despite being completely illegal under international law. Today, it resembles an affluent suburb with its residential neighborhoods and its public swimming pool. It's home to 20,500 people from all over the world. Nadia is originally from Ukraine. She moved here 7 years ago with her son Tim.
In Israel, we have a lot of jokes about, the Christmas tree and the Russian-speaking Jewish community, because it's not something what common to celebrate in Israel. So we still have such pictures from the countries of former Soviet Union.
But Nadia doesn't see herself as a settler. She feels as though she lives in a city like any other.
You feel that you live in a city. I mean, you do live in a city. You have different, you have actually everything what is necessary for your life.
Nadia didn't move to Ariel for political or religious reasons. Like her, 85% of the settlement's residents are secular.
We are not religious, but we do celebrate holidays, and for us it's a very important part of our life. Pesach, New Year celebration, Rosh Hashanah, are very important holidays, and we have family around the table, so for us it's very important also to transfer this knowledge to my son and to build his identity.
Nadia has chosen to live here because Ariel has a unique feature among Israeli settlements, a university. First opened in 2012, its campus has welcomed 16,000 students. Students almost like any others, with the addition of an assault rifle.
We used to see such kind of stuff, among students.
In the library, you meet students from all backgrounds, religious and non-religious. Nadia has just obtained her doctorate in Jewish studies and is starting to teach.
Yes, this is my favorite one, and it's Soviet Jewish Aliyah, because it's my research field, so...
However, the education provided at Ariel is not recognized everywhere. Due to its location in the West Bank, many countries refuse to partner with the university. Hannah oversees international relations.
For example, we are not able to apply for various European grants. That's an issue. We're not part of the Erasmus program.
And even though the university prides itself on welcoming students from all over the world, one population is not represented here, the Palestinians from the West Bank.
We have 10% of students from the large Arab community in Israel. They're Israeli citizens. Unfortunately, we don't have Palestinian students, but again, that's because they don't apply. We actually had one student who applied. I don't know what happened to if it was admitted based on his academic status.
Despite this, the government wants to make Ariel the showcase for its settlement policy. In 2017, during the inauguration of the university's medical school, Benjamin Netanyahu strongly emphasized this point.
ושכונות ובתים, אנחנו בונים באריאל, אנחנו בונים את אריאל, ואריאל תמיד תהיה חלק ממדינת ישראל.
To enforce this vision, the government continues to authorize the construction of new homes. At Ariel City Hall, Shira Kaz is responsible for the development of the settlement. The official barely has a moment to rest.
There's a new neighborhood that's going to connect with this area. So Ariel is going to be much larger than today.
In the south of the city, a brand new neighborhood is taking shape, set to welcome 5,000 new residents.
בגדול היעד שלנו שאריאל תצמח להגיע להיות עם 100,000 תושבים, בהדרגה, כמובן שהשכונה הזאת זה רק ההתחלה, יש לנו אחריה. As you can see, someone who would live here, it's very nice. You see the buildings are not very high.
Repeated condemnation of these settlements by the international community doesn't seem to curb the city's ambitions.
I think this is our land from many, many years, 3,000 years ago. And if someone wants, I would suggest that he would study about the history a bit. There wasn't such a thing as the Palestinians people 3,000 years ago. This is an Israeli state, this is a Jewish land, so yes, there is no other way.
To attract new residents, Shira Kaz aims to make Ariel more appealing. Just outside the settlement, a massive industrial area is under construction.
Alan, my name.
Roy is the director of this site, which is expected to house around 10 factories within a year.
פה מפעל דלתות, שזה גם סוג של עץ וכדומה, מפעל זכוכיות, ובגדול אחרי 350 דונם, אנחנו כבר אומרים להיות אולי האזור התעשייה הכי גדול ביהודה ושומרון.
Judea and Samaria is the biblical name for the West Bank used by settlers.
כן? הם מתקדמים.
Ultimately, the only thing Ariel lacks is manpower. Here, 3/4 of the workers on the construction sites are not Israelis but Palestinians. All day long, they work under the close watch of this security guard.
מאבטחת חמושה?
בטח.
וואו. איזה יופי. ואיך כמה פועלים יש פה באתר?
יש פה 30, משהו כזה.
איך העבודה איתם? רגוע?
כן, ממש.
יופי.
נחמד, עובדים, בשקט.
יופי.
באים, חוזרים, מסיימים את העבודה, הולכים, הכל בסדר.
Since October the 7th, Palestinians employed in Israeli settlements have been forbidden from leaving their place of work, and it's impossible for us to talk to them either.
הם אמורים להגיע לעבוד?
הם עובדים באתר, אבל לא יוצאים, לא מטיילים, לא הולכים לפה.
תודה. תשמרי על עצמך. מים, צל, זה חשוב.
But in Israel, people are speaking out against this brazen settlement policy. One man in particular hopes to represent an alternative to Benjamin Netanyahu. At 62 years old, Yair Golan is the leader of the Israeli left. However, he's no ordinary politician. He's a retired army general. On October the 7th, Yair Golan became a national hero. On that day, as soon as the first rocket alert sounded, he decided to head to the site of the attack.
So I took a rifle and other combatant gear and I went straight away to the south. Ready.
Once he arrived, Yair received a call from his sister. She informed him that a group of young people were fleeing the music festival. Yair then went straight to their aid.
So I asked her, all right, send me a location. I know the terrain very well. I thought it could be much safer to drive my car into the fields and not on the main roads. And that's what I did. And I have managed to find them and to take them out of the combatant zone. And then I got another phone call and another phone call.
In total, he made 3 trips back and forth, getting closer and closer to the fighting, and saved 6 festival goers. A year later, the locations where the attack took place have become memorial sites. A few hundred meters from the festival, the victims' cars have been piled up. They're riddled with bullets or completely burnt.
When you stand here and you see, what is happening around you, you can feel or you can understand the magnitude of the disaster.
All day long, buses drop off hundreds of visitors who come to pay their respects. And since his heroic act, the retired general has not gone unnoticed. These young Israelis are members of a unit that Yair led for 3 years.
את בסדר?
יש לי הזכות והכבוד להגיד כמה מילים על יאיר. אחד הדברים שמאפיינים אותו, קודם כל, גיבור ישראל, אמיץ.
Where are you from?
Texas.
Texas?
The general quickly transforms into a politician and openly criticizes Benjamin Netanyahu's government and his extremist allies.
שלום לכם. אף אומה בהיסטוריה לא נבנתה על הבסיס של שחיתות עמוקה, של לאומנות קיצונית ושל הסתגרות סקטוריאלית שמתעלמת מכל השאר. אנחנו יכולים, כמו בכל טראומה, לשקוע ולהשמיד את עצמנו, ואנחנו יכולים לצאת מזה אומה מחוזקת, אומה טובה יותר, אומה שמצליחה לחיות בינה לבין עצמה באופן הרמוני יותר, וזה לגמרי אפשרי.
For the left-winger, Benjamin Netanyahu has trapped the country into a dead-end war and failed to lay the foundations necessary for future peace with the Palestinians.
Netanyahu, because of his political consideration, doesn't want to release the hostages because he knows that the more extreme elements in his governments don't want it. Because they want to rule the Gaza Strip, they want to occupy the Gaza Strip. The only thing that we can do as an alternative to Hamas is to bring in the Sunni moderate states, the Palestinian Authority, maybe other elements, international elements, in order to stabilizing the Gaza Strip and at the same time in order to establish true alternative to Hamas.
Even though anger is brewing in the country against Benjamin Netanyahu, recent Israeli military successes against Hezbollah in Lebanon, particularly the execution of its leader Hassan Nasrallah, have given the Prime Minister a boost in popularity. According to a recent poll, if legislative elections were held today, his party would win.